longer time. What I'm going to talk about is 23 years and 23 minutes as to what changes I've seen and changes in the sense I expect to happen. So, first of all, we're going to have a little bit of a quiz so you get our knowledge. I have no idea what we were doing here. So for 1 point, we've got to name who the person is, what their sport is, and what their title is.
Mr. Olympia.
Good, Mr. Olympia. I didn't know what the audience was big. I thought about some girls and little people. No, not Branch Warren. Anybody else throw it in? It's Phil Hurst. And it is Mr. Olympia. Well, Phil Heath, sorry. Well done, well done. Second one. Brendan will know this fella, so don't shout out. The sport is? Powerlifting. Somebody said at the last one he's not getting the award for wearing the tightest suit. Yeah, we'll give you that. It is. He was the first man to deadlift 1,000 pounds. Andy Bolton, and he runs out of a gym in Worsnop, and he's a really good bloke to meet. Now, of course, the score for the combined score is now 3,000. So it's over 3,000 for the three lifts. Go on, now the next one. Off we go. This bloke's on fun. Yep, Savickas, yep. And yep. What's he? No, obviously it's strongman events. And what's he done? More than any.
He's world's strongest man.
Overhead press, we'll look at overhead press.
And
Ironman.
yeah, he's world's strongest man, and he's won all the strongman events. Well done. I did this to the player development officers in the rugby union. I think we've got none so far. And the last one. If anybody gets this, I think they do want it right. Okay, obviously we know it's weightlifting. This is to get the idea of the 4 pounds. I saw this occur at London. She was, I think, she was the second lightest category, whatever that is in weightlifting, I think. She's from Kazakhstan. And she clean and jerks nearly 3 times her body weight. And she was 19 years old. So she's doing the gold. She just failed on 135, otherwise she would have got the combined greatest. I mean, she really needs to work on her snatch. I mean, it's shite in it. Just under twice the body weight, yeah. So, okay, let's look at some other elite athletes. So, who's this then? One of our medaling sports. He wasn't even a full-time athlete until recently.
Sprint kayaker.
He's sprint kayaker, yes.
I can't remember his name.
If you ever sit in one of those,
McKeever.
Sprint kayaker, you know what happens? They just drown, basically.
Ed McKeever.
Good man, Ed McKeever. Well done. Points over there. So, he weighs 79 kilos and he can bench press 160. Now, just popped a couple of other people up. So, Greg Rutherford's not doing very well these days. Since his win, but low step up of 3 times his body weight. Chris McCoy, of course, back squat of nearly 2.5 times his body weight. If I'd known it was a male audience, I'd have got a better picture of her. Just have on camera, sorry. Again, over twice her body weight for the back squat. So, where are we trying to get here? Well, let's have a look at what's happened in rugby. So, that's a 19-year-old lad, or he might in fact have been 18 at the time, repping out with 260 kilo dumbbells without any problem at all. And if we go through the research that people like Kev do, and we look at the scores, most of the scores that are done, that published scores are in rugby league, but we go from 1993 when people backs were benching approximately 110 kilos, forwards approximately 120, up to 2004, where Baker was suggesting that these averages were 142.7 kilos. And that now we will have players, and it does not mean that you'll be a great rugby league player if you're a great bench presser, or a great rugby union player if you're a great bench presser. But there will be people who will be 19, 20 years old who are bench pressing 140, 150 kilograms. That are clean back front squatting 170 to the floor. So, to me, what has happened in the last 20 years is people have got mind-bogglingly stronger. They're not genetically any different. There's been no genetic changes between whatever it was, 1991 and 2000 and whatever it is now. But people have started to get onto strength training programs when they're earlier, when they're younger, and there has probably been better strength training programs, and there is also probably a selection of the type of player. And that a player in the past, a player who could get away with just being purely a skillful player cannot do that. So let's have a look at size. Does anybody know what that is? J. Cutler, well done. I presume that's Mrs. J. Cutler. So we'll just cover up the bit we need to cover up. And we get to the sizes of players. So, this is data from Rugby Union. So that last year, for example, the backs weighed 96 kilos. Average back in the second test against South Africa, the average back was 96 kilos. That is the same weight that the average forward was in the 1994 World Cup. Average forwards was 114. If anybody watches the South Africans themselves play now, their back row are 114, 119 and 120 kilos. For those who are still like me in old money, that's between 18 and 19 stone each. That's their back rows. So, PA players are getting bigger. There's a little comment now by an Irish player who's just retired last year. He's got a book out, I forget what his name is now. But he says the difference is now that being hit by a back today is like being hit by a forward when he started. That's part of my collision talk. So, and as Kevin alluded to, one of the main discriminators between first and second grade players in Australian Rugby League is momentum. And studies haven't been done on that in Rugby Union, but studies have been done on speed before the collision and what decision making before the collision. So there is no doubt that within terms of rugby, size, speed matter. And that in the last 23 years, players have got ridiculously stronger. So that in rugby league, for example, in about 1975, when two amateur teams used to go into the Challenge Cup, rather than go through a big process, there was 30 professional teams, two amateur teams. Lee Miners Welfare lost 15-11 at Warrington. Lee Miners Welfare played Warrington tomorrow, they'd more likely lose 115 purely on physical characteristics and nothing else. So, let's have a see where we are now. Okay, question mark. Olympic lift, yes or no? Well, we all know the advantages or the arguments for doing Olympic type lifting because of the triple extension, and that the triple extension is then used in, say, the scrummage, triple extension is used in the tackle, etc. So, this question's been going around for ages. So, 30 years ago, one Super Bowl team used plyometrics in Olympic lifting, the other one was on what's called a HIIT program. In the Elite Rugby Union, Leicester Tigers do no Olympic lifting or squatting. Harlequins and Saracens do Olympic lifting and squatting. My arguments would be, it depends on the player. If the player is 30 years old and he's got poor physique, etc., he's stiff or he's not got great technique or he can't bend his wrists, why waste the time doing Olympic lifting? When people are younger and they should have the technique, they should be flexible and there should be ability to learn, etc., absolutely introduce them as part of Olympic lifting as part of their toolbox. But if they're not just going to get into Olympic lifting, there are different ways of doing it. So, it's outcome based and it depends on the individual. And I'm not going to sit down and argue with somebody that their program's wrong if their outcome of their athlete is good. Okay, what's happened in changes in speed over the years? Well, we're going to have a methods of improving speed strength. So, points being prizes again. Fire away some methods of improving speed strength. Got this gentleman over here, he got all his prizes. Methods of improving speed strength. Anybody? What do we do? What kind of tools do we use to improve people's speed strength?
Jumps, loaded jumps.
Okay, we've got loaded jumps, we'll call that plyometrics. Loaded jumps anymore? Med balls, go on. Sled drags. Any more? Okay, well we'll find them through. Sled pulls, yeah. Weighted vest. Harnesses. Parachutes. Hill sprints, uphill or up and jumps and weighted jumps and plyometrics, but oops. Which is the one that didn't get named? The best way of improving speed strength is get stronger. There's lots of companies, there's nothing wrong with a lot of those devices, but there's lots of companies selling lots of devices to make your speed strength better, to improve your speed, but the best way of getting, particularly in terms of acceleration, the best way of getting faster is getting stronger. That's the cake. To me, with lots, too many people have too much icing and not enough cake. And interestingly, I had a conversation with Robert Newton a year before Australia lost to Yorkshire in the Olympics, and about 9 months after Australia lost to Yorkshire in the Olympics. And he said that the AIS had gone from what its core had been of making people stronger into too much fanning about with various devices. And athletes, the athletes, the swimmers and that was really strong. So, speed strength, get stronger. And how much has that bloke got on the bar? Now would we really want to be playing with this and all that with that on the bar? Okay, so, next one. Methods of improving stride frequency. So, we weren't pretty good on that one, so I'll give you a hint. Overspeed bands. Buy them from anywhere. Stick drills. There's some great stick drills in a book by Remy Korchemny, if anybody's got a copy of it. The octogenarian. You've got that? Remy Korchemny, the octogenarian Ukrainian who was done with Balpa. There's some fantastic stick drills in there about getting cadence and stride length and things. And of course there's overspeed on the treadmill. Or they used to have devices at Dallas Cowboys years ago where they had a thing that looked a bit like a huge lawnmower, and then it was attached to a wire that attached to you, and it pulled you along at different speeds. Again, overspeed training. There are pictures of people being towed on motorbikes and all sorts to improve your overspeed training. But the one we all forget, play stronger. Because when you jump down with one leg at a certain height, it's about 8 times the body weight and force going into the ground. So it will make much more difference to your running economy, and it's your running economy that differentiates between levels of soccer players to improve your strength, which would improve your running economy, and which would improve less time, make less time on the ground. So get stronger. So we'll go to areas improving change of direction speed. Won't call it agility. I'll explain why I won't call it agility later. Okay, ladders. Class discussion. What do we see?
Looking down at the floor.
Lots of people looking down at the floor. Yeah. Look at the back. Got his hand in his pockets. But every one of them's looking down at the floor. So, are they developing good running mechanics? No. Mini hurdles. It's difficult on this one, but what do we notice about this guy here? Is that what we should be doing? It's plant and flex. What should we be encouraging? dorsiflex. Where's his heel? Well, it's on the ground. This guy looks pretty reasonable. This woman, if you get closer, I mean, obviously they're different horses for courses. She's doing it, I presume, for some different event, but she's right over on the side of her ankle. Plantar flexion is she's got to go for both arms like that, so I presume she's just banging the drums. So, again, potentially nice tools, but discuss the images we just have done. Okay. Tackle dummies, agility poles. Right. How relevant are these to the sport? Well, I personally think that that's pretty relevant to a lot of sports, because you're just getting your body awareness of getting them down off the ground. That's my personal opinion. And I think getting two people to do it, to wrestle and things like that, is pretty useful and pretty relevant. Tackle dummies and pattern runners in American football are potentially useful, because in American football they run through a lot of pre-planned patterns. What about those soccer players running through those poles there? I mean, the thing isn't quite straight, so you can't see. Is the white guy, is he in a good athletic position? No. What relevance is there of running through a pole? Does the pole move? So, I would argue that for field and court speed, most field, as in all of cricket, hockey, rugby, not cricket particularly, but hockey, rugby, football, and then court speed, basketball, tennis, etc., badminton, you've got to overcome inertia, because we start from scratch quite often, or sometimes we may start from a rolling, but overcome inertia. We've got to change direction quickly, but also we've got to react to opponents. And in order to do that, we've got to do two things. Yes, we do need to do some biomechanical stuff. Some of it might be ladders and things like that, if they're done correctly. And they have a short plyometric effect. But we also have to do some game sense stuff as well. And there was a study at Brisbane Broncos where it had 4 groups of players. They put them through agility scenarios, one with a reaction to a stimulus, one without reaction to a stimulus, and you basically get players who've got a fast mind and a fast, great. You've got players who are slow mind and slow, sell them. You've got players who are fast mind but slow mechanically, well, you work on the mechanics. You've got players who are fast mechanics and slow mind, well, you work on the game sense. There's also a study by Johnny Bloomfield on a similar thing. So, recap on speed and agility. Strength and game sense is the first stage. Strength and game sense is the second stage. Strength and game sense is the third stage and the fourth stage. And it should all be undermined by physical literacy, which a lot of people don't have. Changed over the years, I'm going to have to go quickly. Integration of athletic support. Obviously now, I think players are monitored, they have physios, etc., etc. Players have prehab, rehab, all those type of programs. Didn't have that in the past, you just got some bloke from the local gym to do you. Energy system training. So, in the past, when I studied, it was all just, well, I didn't do it, but a lot of people, it was steady state. You did steady state in the beginning of, I didn't, but people did steady state in the beginning of the pre-season, then he did far left, then he did interval, and he did 6 weeks of 6 days of speed training, and then all the way through the season, then they did the same again and wondered why nobody had any speed. And they just, so in other words, they trained them like a marathon runner, then they trained them like a middle distance runner, then they trained them like a speed runner for 2 weeks. So obviously, don't think that particularly works. Tabata, does that work? There's a lot of evidence to suggest that it does in certain areas, but I would suggest that that's not really done with elite athletes, or certainly not people who are going to play for 80 minutes, etc. So question marks. Yes, we do steady states, far less intervals. My question is, does a training your sport match the situation in terms of intensity? In terms of rugby, obviously that there has to be some collision, and there was studies done on, I'm not very good at this, ski poles, they put an elite like skier on a treadmill, they put his, super elite, and they did his lactate, and his lactate levels didn't go up particularly. He stopped his leg movement, so he was just doing his arms, lactate went through the ceiling. Then he put his legs back on again, his lactate dropped. So, particularly in rugby union, where some of the balls can take longer, you're building up a lactate in that grappling area that you're not necessarily running off. So, unless you do that type of training, you're not training really enough for the game. So, this guy's training quite well. Change of this technology, just fire through technology quickly. Got power outputs, obviously, measuring sessions, measuring days before, in the morning, measuring vertical jumps. We've got the force platforms, we've got gym awares, etc. Then we've got heart rate monitors, and then we get to GPS. So, GPS quickly. If it was that accurate, why do American drones keep bombing wedding parties in Afghanistan? Just a question. Martin Bouchard, I think is that how you pronounce his name? He put the GPSs in little boxes, and he put them on a cart, and he got the cart driven around by a tricycle around the track, and then he looked at the different monitors, and they're miles out, absolutely miles out. If you're in a big stadium, they reconnect between satellites in the stadium. The data in the collisions isn't good enough. I don't think that in rugby union they're particularly relevant because of the way where the game is. So that's me on GPS. Anybody who wants to talk to me about GPS, I'm quite happy to have a long conversation with you about it. What's proliferation of pseudo-scientific drivel, particularly read by rugby coaches and similar people. NLP, New Age claptrap, emotional intelligence, again, claptrap, and all that. Thankfully, at the World Class Coaching Conference at UK Sport has actually come out and said that that's claptrap. So, over to the last three paradigms. Paradigm shift number one. We all know about aerobic, anaerobic, lactates, and all this business and threshold. Well, and those as being bits for fatigue. Well, it's not quite so simple as that, and I think what we say by a paradigm shift is when people stop believing that the sun went round the world, more people start believing the world went round the sun. Well, because of the works of people like him, and if you want to read a nice book about extreme kind of sport by ordinary people, I think that's excellent. Chapter on physiology, chapter on his little life bits, and this guy. So we've moved now basically to a central governor theory, if that's the right term, that fatigue is caused by the central nervous system, not because our muscles ache, not because we've got too much lactate, not because we've run out of oxygen or whatever. It's a central government system theory. Paradigm shift number two. Food pyramid. 20 years ago, that's what athletes were told to eat. Then we moved on a bit. And we're more like that now. So there's much more emphasis on more protein, much more emphasis on green vegetables, much less emphasis on carbohydrates. So I think that's been a paradigm shift. And a potential paradigm shift coming up, and this is the last slide. So this thing, what's this thing for? This thing's to weight you down whilst you're running. And what are they for? To destroy your teeth and give you diabetes when you get older. So, question. I know a geneticist who works with the guys in Kenya and Ethiopia and that. So they go out, they're not literally hunter-gatherers, but they're very close to being hunter-gatherers, some of these guys. So they'll go out all day and they'll chase down their antelopes or whatever, and they'll go. And it's 45 degrees, possibly hotter at 50 degrees. How much do they drink during the day? Go on.
No.
Correct. They drink nothing. Don't get struggled from dehydration again. They don't drink anything. They get the water from vegetables and that water they make take on time and stuff at the end. Don't drink anything. So we've been told that thirst, you know, you've got to drink 6, however, whatever it is, litres and all this. I suggest that particularly, big level look at that. It's largely an endurance sport. It is different in repeat sprint sports. But anyway, that's me.